Isn't that funny? Okay, it's done the same thing it did before. Okay, well, I would say that we're live. We are. I'm just going to check and see what it says here. Oh. I'm just going to check and see. We are. What it says here. Although I didn't change the titles. It's funny. Hi, you guys. It's the this is the second or third time that this has done this, where it kind of goes live and through Restream and doesn't allow me to change the titles. So this says the same title on as the last time I had an online interview, which was
Is that right?
Amy Thiessen. But we'll change it later. That's good. So we're on. Hey, what a week.
Yes, you had a good week. Or interesting week.
I did. I don't know if you remember last week we were talking about my experience working at the treatment center, and was sharing that I had discovered, in the meditation last week, that I'd gone into that space and immediately had put on a mask or a persona, or a set of behaviors, and so I went back this week more aware that comes up, and and that doesn't mean that the whole weekend that I worked there that I was able to not do that. It just means that I was more aware and more present to the possibility of being there, more open-hearted, and that was my intent, to be. For those of you that are here for the first time, I'm working kind of part-time at a treatment center, and it's called Fresh Start, and I enjoy it. I love being there, and but I just recognized last week that I was going there as somebody, and I wasn't going there just being me, and whoever me is, and so the me I decided to go there as, it's more me of an open-hearted me, not knowing me, not having an agenda me, just available me, and that me seemed to have more fun. and I ate too much this weekend, though. There was a lot of food around there. So anyway, I just want to share that with you, that there was a shift there. And one of the ladies who comes on our group quite regularly sent me a text, I think yesterday, and asked me, how did it go? And when is it appropriate to be in the persona, and when is it not? And it was a really interesting question, and that she had shared, and I think I'm just going to have a quick look at that, because it was if I can find it. Anyway, I can't, because I sent so many messages out today. But what Lauren had said is, when is it appropriate to be, when we're out in the world, to, put on a mask, to make and it's an interesting question. It's what if our intent was to not do that, to risk? I think that we put on a mask when we're in a way trying to control the outcome or trying to control period, I guess that would be the outcome. When we're afraid, in some way, we'll do that. We'll assume a role, and I think that for me, it's not always easy to see when I've done that. It can come up, and part of wanting to be, of being attracted to being more conscious is to be conscious of that. When am I playing a role, and not so much why, but because I found if I focus on the why, I'm mucking around in the psychology of it or the problem of it, and if I'm aware that that happens, and I focus on on love, or I focus on my relationship with the moment, or my higher power, or God as I understand him, then it melts, and the why doesn't matter so much. It's I can live more presently, and my intent is, I understand, my experience is that my natural state is one of love, and that's my preference is to live in my natural state, not to control what program am I showing you today, so that I can get some sort of result. Then it's not me. It's not my natural state. It's me, this being something, and so that's the yeah. So I have something I wanted to read before we meditate. For those of you that hear, for the first time, or coming back, we've been meeting at 7 on Monday evenings, and I've been inviting as many of you as possible to come on this format in the Zoom, because then we can discuss. And any of you that are on Facebook right now, if you wanted to come over to Zoom, it would be great, because then after we meditate, we can have a little discussion and people can be part of it. Last week we had somebody come in, like Lowell, who I know quite well, who may not speak, but I'm glad you're here, Lowell. We had somebody come in, and we just could see their initials. We didn't see who it was. And by the way, Adrian, I did find out they were quite elusive, and kind of wanted to stay on the edge of things. And
was it a woman or was it a guy? That's what we were wondering.
It was a woman. It was a woman, and a lady that I know, and that my intuition was to go see her, and because she, I felt she was reaching out, and that it turned out to be, a really nice visit, and very warm. It was good. There's Elena. Hi, Elena.
Elena, hi.
Hi, honey.
How are you?
Good.
Good.
So we were just chatting about being here as ourselves.
Great.
Whoever that is, being here in our natural state, being here it's my experience that my natural state is a state of love, and when I'm anywhere assuming a role or a persona, or doing, like last week, were you here last week?
No. I had I forgot what it was. Oh, I was on an interview or something. So
Yes. Yeah.
I couldn't be.
So last week we just talked about how at the treatment center where I was working, I found that I was putting on a persona. And when I would go into work, and I realized that my preference would be to be there in open-hearted, more consciously. And
Nice.
so this last weekend went by, and even in a couple of occasions when I did find myself in reaction, I was quite quickly conscious of that, and so more conscious. A great place to practice being here consciously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So
like it.
thanks for coming
Yeah.
in on this channel. And I was just, when you dropped in, inviting people to maybe who are watching us on Facebook or YouTube to, if they'd like to join us here, the link is in a message I sent out earlier today. It's also on the Facebook page, Valley and Beyond, and you're welcome to join us here. And we do have, quite a group watching us on Facebook right now. Kathy Lynn is there, and Bev and Justin and Deepak and Allison and Bonnie and Nicole. Hi, Nicole. You could come back to this hi, Nicole, to Zoom if you'd like. And Jennifer, of course, and Justin and Jess, and James. Hey, James Johnson. So there's quite a crew on watching us on Facebook as we talk here. I wanted to read something before we go into our meditation, and it's a powerful piece that was written by a doctor, probably in the 50s or 60s, and it's a piece that actually it's in the 12-step, the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I've read it many times, and 2 or 3 times today it's come up for me, and I thought, well, I'll just read this and then we'll kind of meditate with the residue of this, whatever spills over into our meditation, and then we can chat a little bit after that. So this was Dr. Paul, page 449 in the text of, and it's about acceptance, and it says, and acceptance is the answer to all my problems today. When I am disturbed, it is because I find some person, place, thing, or situation, some fact of my life unacceptable to me. And I can find no serenity until I accept that person, place, thing, or situation as being exactly the way it's supposed to be in this moment. Nothing, absolutely nothing happens in God's world by mistake. Until I could accept my alcoholism, my illness, I could not stay sober. Unless I accept life completely on life's terms, I cannot be happy. I need to concentrate not so much on what needs to be changed in the world as on what needs to be changed in me and my attitudes. Shakespeare said, all the world's a stage, all the men and women merely players. He forgot to mention that I was the chief critic. He forgot to mention I was chief critic. I was also able to see the flaw in every person, every situation. I was always glad to point it out because I knew you wanted perfection as I did. 12 steps in acceptance have taught me that there's a bit of good in the worst of us and a bit of bad in the best of us. We're all children of God. We each have a right to be here. When I complain about me or about you, I'm complaining about God's handiwork. I'm saying that I know better than God. So it's a beautiful piece around acceptance, and I thought if we took this moment to drop into like a 10-minute meditation, and maybe just when we do that to bring that with you, just look at that and there we go, and think of acceptance. Think of, well, I'll just mention it a couple of times when we start, but so we're going to do a meditation right now, and you guys, my experience is that when I meditate, I can drop out of my story. And often people will tell me, though, I can't meditate because my mind is going so fast and I'm always thinking. And often it's just about this. Our mind is thinking non-acceptance thoughts. If we can actually recognize that everything is absolutely perfect in this moment. So just close your eyes and sit for a second and recognize, just let it all go. Nothing in God's world right now, nothing in your world, nothing in this world, nothing in God's world, because they're all the same, is out of place. Not a hair is out of place. And just for a few minutes, we can just let go of the thinking that something should be different, or even thinking that we know who we are. We can just let go of our idea of who we are, our identity, what we do. Just accept that we are here in this very moment, just right here. There's no past, no future, no right, no wrong, no good, no bad. Just drop into your breath. Drop into this moment. Just breathe, feel to your body. Recognize when all the story is gone, we drop into our natural state. And our natural state is love, unconditional. Without exception. Totally inclusive love. Just feel the quiet. Feel the stillness. Wow. Uh, Adrian, I found a bell. Uh, so the piece I just read about acceptance, I'm going to make an assumption for what we're doing here tonight. And the assumption I'm going to make is that at one level, everybody that's here, either on Zoom or on Facebook or YouTube, has a desire, if you will, or at the very least a strong interest in feeling peace, in experiencing serenity, in feeling wholeness, being complete in some way, feeling completeness. That if we weren't interested in, I don't even want to call it evolving, because, but if we weren't interested in some sort of a spiritual experience, we probably wouldn't be interested in being here. This is we wouldn't be interested in meditation. So I'm going to just make an assumption that's the case, that even though we can't describe it or explain what it is that we're all on this journey in, but realization of self, realization of infinite intelligence of God, I believe is the draw, even if we don't know that that's the draw. Although I'll have to say that for much of my life, the motivation was pain, discomfort. Discomfort created a desperation sometimes. And what I didn't realize is that although desperation would get me kind of out of the situation, it stood in the road of my awakening, if you will. It didn't, but it did move things. And what I loved about the reading tonight is that acceptance, it talks about acceptance. Acceptance, the whole reading that I read assumes that we're actually going to be looking at ourselves or looking at life, and in a way where we could live in a sense of acceptance. And what the writer said was that when we accept every person, place, thing, situation as being exactly as it needs to be in each moment, and so when I'm in complaint, when I'm saying, when I'm in complaint, I'm saying I know better than the moment. I'm not in the moment. I'm actually, I'm in my head. I'm thinking about how I think it should be as opposed to how it is. So even if I'm in complaint about myself, if I'm having a feeling, maybe if I'm even in anger. Now, I don't want to live in anger. I would prefer not to live in anger, but I need to accept if it comes up, so that it, to see it and accept that it's there. Or if I'm in fear, to see it and become aware of it. And I think I mention this often. Socrates said, "Know thyself," and it seems that through a level of acceptance, I can move into my natural state. Things melt. Years ago, my lovely wife, Sheila, taught me awareness, acceptance, and her third part of that was change. And not that I'm just wanting to change, but what she said was that if I'm aware of what's happening in me, and then and I accept what's happening in me, then it moves. And if it's going to move, my natural state will be that it'll move, if you will, to a higher state, maybe from fear into courage, you know, maybe from anger into acceptance, or you know, and then it moves up into unconditional love, which is more of our natural state. And when we started to, we've got quite a crew on Facebook. It's really neat. When we started to do this, you know, my thought was that we just help people to find their way into meditation. But what wants to come now is let's share with, you know, a little bit more about ourselves, and so that we can stop in each moment with consciousness, and when I don't know if this happens for others, but for me, it can be really easy for me not to be not to be conscious, you know, to be unconscious, and so I'm suspecting that it happens for everybody. I'm not unique, and so learning to recognize what it is that's happening, you know. So there's some self-examination that's been going on for me for, you know, 40 years or more, so that I can see myself when things are going on, and I can then not go against it, but accept it, not accepting it as if I would love it, you know, to stay. Say I was in complaint, to accept that I was in complaint, so that it will move, and it can move, and I can be in more of a natural state. And so that was the thing about that I loved in that piece that I read. Adrienne or Alana, do you have anything that you'd like to add to this around acceptance, or knowing yourself, or moving into a state of oneness as a result of surrendering a lot of what we're talking about is the dualistic way that we live, and often, and thinking that there's something to get. It's interesting that for a long time for me, I was working on myself, if you will, because I was motivated by wanting to get things. You know, I thought that and I read Napoleon Hill, and Napoleon Hill had said, hello, I'm just going to mute you. Oh, there, you're muted. Napoleon Hill had said, you know, that with our mind we could create, you know, and we could, with our thoughts we could create, and many teachers have said that, you know, from the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus was quoted as saying, "As a man thinketh, you know, so shall it be done unto him." So all of the great teachers had said that, and so I wanted to clean up my thoughts so that I could, you know, focus on creating on this planet, you know, and creating wealth, or creating a relationship. And when I was younger, a lot of it was about wanting to be accepted or loved in a relationship with a woman. And in my thinking, I thought if I had a lot of things, you know, houses, motorcycles, or things, or travel, or adventure, that I would get that love and acceptance from outside of me. And so that was originally was part of my motivator, was not to build a relationship with God, but to kind of heal my mind so that I could focus and create. And as the years went by, I recognized that, you know, all of that management didn't work for me. I really had to surrender that. And ultimately, the lesson that came was that nothing outside of me was going to fill this. Nothing outside of me, no amount of loving relationship with a woman, or no amount of money in the bank, or travel around the world, or was really going to fill this, and that I had to let go of wanting or desiring any of that, and discover that the real essence was inside of me, that and what was blocking me from seeing it actually was the desire for all of that stuff. And after I got by some of the initial things like quitting, drinking and drugs and the things that were really harmful, then there was a whole journey of learning and hundreds of books to be read, but most of it was so that I could get something. And then eventually what came was that there was nothing to get. Anyway, except love and acceptance in this moment, and this oneness, this beautiful, bliss that we have. So any thoughts, you guys?
I'll unmute myself. Okay, I can say. When you read the piece, you said you read something about perfection. Everything is perfect, or something like that. What was it that was? And you said we should meditate on the reading. What was the piece around?
Well, the piece was really
that every moment is perfect, or something like that.
Let me see if I can find it again. There we go. It's a great paragraph in this book, and I'll just read the paragraph again. Would that be okay?
Yes.
And it says, "And acceptance is the answer to all my problems today. When I am disturbed, it is because I find some person, place, thing, or situation, some fact of my life unacceptable to me. And I can find no serenity until I accept that person, place, thing, or situation as being exactly as it's supposed to be in this moment. Nothing, absolutely nothing happens in God's world by mistake."
So it speaks almost like to the perfection of the moment.
Yes.
And I think, I think on some level it sounds like poetry now. And then what I mean by that is it's a momentary poem that one kind of relaxes into and enjoys for a moment, and then the next moment one says, well, what just happened over there, so the next moment, so it's almost like, one takes that into the mouth for a little bit, or into the ear for a little bit, but doesn't really listen to it and really deeply contemplate it, because if one really wasn't, that's what I was doing in the meditation. I was like, what would it really mean if one was to believe this? And not like just sort of go like, no, I only apply that when I like it, when it's easy to apply, or when I agree with this. But I won't apply it when my mind, or this mind, says, no, this is different now. Now, this is not perfect. This is not just as it should be, like this. Because it's very radical, that statement. Because it doesn't say, and here are the 25 exceptions. No?
Oh, it's funny, as a youth, I'm serious, in my 20s and 30s, I probably read that, I don't know, 500 times. And now it's so real to me.
Right.
And it wasn't then. It was like a mantra that but what you're saying is that,
Maybe what has brought it real for you in some way is that you have
Pause for a
come.
second. What was the statement? That's the wow statement again. The it. Yeah, sorry. You guys are going into the story of the amazingness, and then it was based on a phrasage on. I think that Adrian, you said it was the magnanimous statement. What was the statement?
The
oh
one that you read, David, around.
yeah, do you want me to read it again, Lowell?
So the basic, 3-5 word. Wow, that's okay. There are no exceptions. What was that statement?
Oh, okay. So yeah, read that part again about that no matter what person, thing,
Okay.
or whatever. Yeah. That
Yes. Nothing, absolutely nothing happens in God's world by mistake.
Okay, there. That's good. So nothing, but in the mind we say, yeah, except
Yes.
this and this and this because I don't like it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So to really apply that to those things where the mind has says accept this and this and this, I think that's the most. It's easy to do it with like, oh yeah, well today someone gave me a cake, and oh, it came from God directly, like that was like a miracle. I love it. This statement totally applies to that event.
Well, and you're right. If we're living in right and wrong, good and bad, and before and after, and all of this, if yes, I mean that statement in that book is singular. It's not
It's singular. Yeah, it doesn't say whether it's good or whether it's bad.
No.
It's absolute.
Yes.
It's without exception.
Yeah, it's pretty priceless.
Which makes it super, super profound.
Yes.
Because of the dualistic mind, which will says, well, but I would like to choose one that applies.
Yeah.
But then when it's really applied and one really reflects on it, then it takes on. And I think what you mentioned, David, is how when you were young, it was more like a mantra. And now it starts to have a lot more meaning. And I was thinking maybe because you have seen that even those things that the mind has in the past rejected as okay, that would be the worst thing to happen, you realize it also was perfect. It was also, it's what brought me here and so on and so on.
Well, evidence shows, of course, that's always the case. And
Right.
in the moment, though, I mean, because I still have a tendency to drop into wanting my way.
Right. But now, like, let's say even that being perfect then.
Yes, of course. I accept that happens. It happened today,
Right.
and
Right.
and there was even a moment of regret that I had to say, oh, look at that. I'm feeling embarrassed and regretful for for my action,
Right.
and to accept that, and because
Right.
acceptance seems to just it negates. There's no power left in those things when it negates all the power out of those things when I accept them.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's
Yes.
they melt.
Yes. It cleans it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And because when I don't accept them, especially about something, well, then I result in guilt.
Right.
or
Then
shame.
suffering comes.
Suffering comes. Or if it's about you, I end up in resentment.
Right.
Or anger.
Yes.
And so acceptance just is another word almost for love. It just cleans it up. It just like and such freedom.
Mm-hmm.
In
In some ways, it also is a synonym for reality, because it is just what it is, whether you accept it or not.
Yes.
Right.
So in a way, then it's also a synonym for the reality beyond the mind deciding whether it likes it or not likes it, or like this. So it brings it back to that in some way as well.
Yeah,
Ah.
you're exactly right. And it's really cool because when you truly do accept, you are entering into that place where all of a sudden you aren't labeling. And when you're not labeling the situation because you're accepting it, you're not trying to you're not attached to it, then you start to live the duality. It's very true. And it's very powerful. Yeah. Very good point, Adrian.
So there's a lady on Facebook who has said, is making a comment, and I just want to maybe chat about it because I think this comes up a lot, and it seems like quite an honest comment, and she says, "What nonsense is this? God? ? Who knows what God, and who is so arrogant to claim they know what a God says or wants? You? What authority do you possess to assert such a claim?" It's an exciting comment.
Can I answer that?
Yeah.
It's an exciting comment.
Can I answer that?
Sure, if you'd like to, yes.
Yeah. I am, well, here's the thing. I am God. And I'll say it this way. Replace God with sovereign. I am sovereign. And each one in this room is sovereign, who's listening is sovereign. And so is God sovereign, the original first sovereign that started it all. The first being that came out of nothing, that fractaled itself out to the existence that we are in now, which is also happening within us with all the beings, bacteria, little microbes inside us who are fractaling out their own existence as well. So in the sense that a sovereign being, who are the sovereign beings is a very good question. Who are any sovereign being to infringe on my sovereignty? And I think that statement, Adrian, comes out really profound where it says everything is, or it was a no thing has come outside of God's will or something like that, plan, or everything is according to my plan, my will. And if you look at Napoleon Hill, and you look at what Joe Rodriguez comments about, think and grow rich. As you believe, so it is done unto you. And when you're in this dissonance of a problem coming at you, the problem is there because you, the God of your universe, has somehow agreed to go in a direction, and that problem is there saying, this is something that's you need to get out of the way to go in your direction. And so when we don't accept that, we get into this what's happening. But if we accept that all things are per God's will, my will, that problem is there because I put it there. I willed it there. Why did, what have I manifested in my thinking, agreed to, questioned, put out there, made a statement, made a demand, made a declaration, made a question. Why, how come this? I'll never do that. I agree to this. And then the universe goes and brings these out and says, well, you wanted the answer, you wanted this particular preference, and then we forget we did that, and then we're like, hey, that's not what I really wanted. And the universe is like, I'm not interpreting what you really want, sir. That's up to you. So here's where the good question is, who is to interpret that for us? That's us. We have to interpret that for ourselves. We are the choice makers. We are the story creator. We are the director of our story. And profoundly so, we are the God in that statement. Like when it comes down to our little zone of sphere of reality that is our domain in our sovereignty, and then with our conscious awareness of that. So I don't know if I'm coming through clear or whatnot or making sense, but that's kind of my 2 cents on who is God and the will of God and to impinge and blah blah blah. No one. Who are we to impinge our will on an ant? No one. So it's really the choice of the beings, whether they're big or small, us or an ant, on that will and the reality of it that we're engaging in. That's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Lowell. Appreciate that. It's I appreciate that. I just to it's a big on one level, on the level of that most of us are flying at, which is in the dualistic level of right and wrong, good and bad.
Yeah.
It's a big question.
Mhm.
On another level, there's no question at all. That for me to attempt to explain some definition of God could only be explained in the level of the dualistic view. I think my experience is really in nothingness. I can't even explain my experience. And for most of my life, I could talk about God, but not really from a like a firsthand experience. I could, I don't claim to represent or to preach or talk about some concept that fits for anybody here or anybody anywhere. My experience is that it is that this is all that, and that there is no separation in me from this or from you. I don't live that experience all the time. I often am not there or even cognizant of it, but I have experienced that experience and of oneness. And I choose to say that was my experience of God. And if there's something beyond that, I'm sure that if it's meant, to be experienced, it'll be experienced. I think that we get so caught up in concepts and attached to concepts that we don't really experience what's here because we're talking about it or thinking about it or interpreting it. And yes, the mind enjoys a concept, a good concept, God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit. These are all concepts, and I like universal intelligence, in the quantum field, when I really want to get really, 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 really simple, I think of God as my employer. That's, when I'm in the world and God the employer. And then I, from this position, ask for guidance and, and humbly, if possible, carry out what interpretation I get from the guidance. And not to say that I'm and I haven't made some pretty silly interpretations. And I work with a lot of newcomers in the 12-step program, and as soon as they discover that there's a God, they almost all right away start to say, and God wants me to do this, and God wants me to do that, and so they'll use the idea of God as a justification for whatever it is that they want, or something will appear, like Adrian said, the cake will appear, and they'll say, God sent me cake for my birthday, and but maybe the girlfriend doesn't show up, and they'll be like that, so they'll exclude everything that they don't like as that couldn't be God's will, and there's, so we can go all the way from that level of an interpretation of God to a place of oneness that I believe the reading today talked about, everything in each moment is exactly as it's supposed to be. And this is the perfection of God in this moment. And that experience can be had. I've been watching Muji a lot. Gosh, I'm bloody well hooked on Muji. I've been watching Muji, and Muji actually helps people with the direct experience over and over and over and over again. He allows us to, it coaches us really to drop all of our identity and all of our attachments and all of our beliefs and all of our ideas of everything outside of this moment, usually by saying you can have them back later. if you say just let it go and you can pick it up later, and so the mind just kind of will do that and let it go, and then all of a sudden we're out of our mind. We're into a undescribable beyond the mind. And it's so interesting that many of us want that experience, or we say we want that experience, but we are not prepared to surrender or let go of our identity, or not, or our, even for the moment, our possessions, or our job, or our relationship, or our children, so we want to hang on to all this stuff. Anyway, so that's my 2 cents, if you will, on that. I'm going to just go back in and find my little my little thing. What's this? iPad. My little iPad ran out of juice, so but I do want to go back into the Facebook page to see if we've there it is. There we go. So we can, because we were in a conversation with this lady, and deep. I may have to go offline with her. She's said lots, and interesting. So I have in the 12-step world, we have a chapter called We Agnostic, and it's in the book, and what it says about God because some approach must be made in the 12 steps to have a relationship with a higher power. And what they say is God either is or he isn't. So they kind of draw the line. He either is or he isn't. What's our choice to be? And it's like, oh, okay. And that's a pretty solid question. And then they say either he's everything or he's nothing. And it's like, wow, okay. And it's something for many of us to grow into, I think, and that concept. But either God is or he isn't. Either he's everything or he's nothing. What's our choice to be? And through meditation, I believe, because this is how this all kind of started for me, was, if we can guide people to begin to sit, and through the sitting, an awareness can come that there's something beyond the mind. Because the first sort of roadblock that we run into is that the mind is chattering. What about lunch? What about, it's all the questions. What about the rent? What about, what you're getting old, whatever, it's chattering. And so we're watching the mind in meditation, and we're recognizing that there's something that's watching the mind. And that's the beginning of the, so I'm not my mind. Okay, because there's something beyond the mind that's watching the mind. And we can clearly see that in meditation. and it may take a little while, but then what can come from that is that we can take the mind less seriously. You know, we can be like, look at that. It actually just runs all over the place. Says, does whatever it wants. It makes up stories and puts them on Facebook. You know, it's just, actually, I call it my crazy mind, you know, and because sometimes it is crazy. Or I call it the magical meaning making machine, because it's always making meaning, you know. It wants to make up stories about everything. So if I can see that in meditation, that's the mind, and the mind's, you know, it's a beautiful piece of equipment. It's been here to serve us. It keeps us, and sometimes out of danger, you know, but for the most part, I can't really trust it. And I've learned that from experience, that if I tune in, and if I am tuned in, if I'm conscious and I'm living each moment as, you know, following my guidance, following my intuition, following my heart, then you know, everything seems to just flow. I'm in the flow of life. You know, when I'm in my mind, you know, which I can get caught in, and I'm thinking, and the mind's always looking for danger, warning, warning, danger approaching. And the mind's always trying to then things usually turn to shit. So, you know, that's a simplistic thing. You know, why would I want to have an experience of God? Well, I'm hoping there's something more here than my mind. And my experience now is that I've connected with this something, and I can have that and be in that connection. That connection always exists. It's always there. I don't have to build it or develop it. It's always there. It's just that I've learned to surrender the mind and be in that. And then I'm in that, I'm in my flow. And people will call it their heart, you know, or with their gut, but it's beyond that even, you know. It's that, and it does sort of come through the mind, you know, but because we're all one with that, but it's not the mind in a sense. It's not my mind anyway, because my mind's always trying to, you know, my mind is almost always coming from lack or fear, or, you know, that's just the way it was set up. Mine was geared differently than many of us, you know, as a street kid, and, you know, and I grew up in an alcoholic home, and all of those things, you know, there was a trauma and stuff that came in very, very young. So and I believe that that's there. And so I just, you know, I can't fix it. I've stopped trying to fix it, because when I'm mucking around in there, you know, after 45 years of trying to fix it, I said, fuck it. I'm not going to fix it. Let's just override it and go direct, you know, and so that's the possibility. And I think all of us can live these amazing, not that you're not living an amazing life, but all of us can live this amazing life of freedom, because the trap is in the mind. You know, the mind tells us we're not good enough, or we need more. You know, it's always questioning, what did she mean by that? And, you know, all of that stuff. And it's a trap. It's you know, I fancy that we're jailbreakers. Adrian, are you a jailbreaker? Help people break out of the prison of their minds, you know, and their certainty, you know, of right and wrong and good and bad, and, you know, yeah. So it's a lot of bullshit. But there is freedom, and freedom is there for all of us. And it's not like none of us are unique in that sense. We all have that, and meditation is a path to that. It can be a path to that, and listening to teachers like Mooji and Ram Dass and Alan Watts and Eckhart Tolle. These guys are all amazing at pointing towards this freedom and helping us to get past the certainty of the mind. The mind's very defensive. It doesn't want us to find that freedom. In a way, it wants to hang on to control. So
Well, your mind, but
pardon me?
I just want to clarify every statement you make that you're talking about the mind. I work
Yeah.
with my mind as well, so that my mind doesn't hear it and go, "Oh, that's how I should do it," because you have clarified that that's how your mind works. And I
Yes.
just want to have my mind understand Noel's mind is different. It's not. They're different priorities,
Well, is it?
you know, and different capacities, right? So.
Is it? I mean, it may be different. I mean, I think if people are, if you are happy in the life that your mind has created, in a sense, and then I think then that's perfect. You know, I really do. I wasn't. I had to, you know, in a way I wasn't. In, you know, there was a dissatisfaction with me that seemed to come from the mind, and the peace of surrendering the mind has been is beautiful, and
Absolutely.
yeah. So maybe I don't know if I've gone too far, but that's the thing that comes up for me. So you guys,
Yeah, what I hear you saying is that in the transforming of and the renewing of your mind, in your journey of the transformation and the renewing of your mind, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. That strategy, and given your past has put you on some battle zones, whatever challenges that you had that are a little bit more, because it's like you've had years of trained in thinking patterns that are you're like, okay, now how do I redo those? And I'm working with kind of starting from scratch on my end and going, okay, I don't, having lost so much, I can do that, and because of the unprecedented times that we're in, I get to do that. And because I've approached it so radically, like I'm going to write modern scripture, I'm going to write my own script, and one of the script was my words are powerful beyond measure, able to transform reality, create reality, and transform reality, even my very own heart. And so okay, without what was the what for? All is most best well, all are experiencing and expressing most best well, all deserve most best well. And this is just coming from my heart. So as a poem, right? As what is my what's in there, right? And then and it started to transform me, and I had to, back and forth, and I'd run into these same things that you're talking about with the old pattern going, well, we know how to do it this way really well. We know how to think this way and act this way, and try to break through that and go, now I know you don't know mind how this works yet, but there's this idea, ding, that it can be easier than you have planned. So, and that's what my heart says. So you're a real smart brain. So why don't you use your brains to support the heart and stop telling the heart it can't be done, and work it that way. So then I said, okay, I got my brain to think smart and go, okay, brain, if you're gonna be logical and and all that stuff, pick up what the heart wants and try to make that work. Figure out how to make that work. And it takes some time, but like you said, there's fruits of that. The thinking pattern is different now. I have a different thinking pattern, and it's more open to the quickness by which things can transform and change from what I didn't prefer to what I currently prefer. So yeah, I really resonate with what you're saying, and applaud you on that. Thank you.
Nice. Okay. I think I like what you said, that I may have been different in a way. I believe that, and I didn't get this till the last few years, that it's possibly that childhood trauma locked things in place, and that no matter all the affirmations that I could do, and I did years of them, and all of the breath work and all of the the prayer and all the meditation, it didn't seem to be able to change the pattern that was locked in the mind. And I finally decided to take another path. I guess I decided to take another path. Another path became obvious. And that was to, totally surrender the story. And not just the story of my life and hanging on to the identity of who I was in this moment, but to surrender even the identity, even the beliefs, just to let it all go. And for me, I used a practice called the Enlightenment Intensive. That was days of 16-hour days of really asking one question. And the question was, tell me who you are. Tell me who you are. Tell me who you are. Tell me who you are, over and over again, hour after hour. And to respond, and eventually the mind surrendered. And in the surrender was this bliss, was this nothingness, that was there. The surrender didn't create it. It was there. It was that the mind finally moved over or disappeared, and yet it was still there in a way, because it was still speaking. It was the mind that in a way that was, it wasn't like I was a puddle on the floor, but there was no I, in the sense of David, that was there. So I can't say there aren't many roads to this, and I won't say that there aren't many roads to this. I think there are. I think there are many ways to awaken, and one of the things that I surrendered, though, was the idea that I knew what I wanted. Because I let go of creating a new reality from my mind, because I guess I recognized or experienced the possibility of an infinite reality that could be beyond anything that I could possibly imagine with my mind. And so not to make the mind bad, or to not be against the mind. I think the mind has been a great tool. It's just that somehow mine got kind of really deeply grooved in a certain I'm not good enough way, a certain I'm not worthy of love way. And it just, no matter what I seem to do to try to groove that and come from there, it didn't. I finally had to surrender. It didn't work. Yeah. So I'm grateful for that, and I'm open to whatever path that people take to whatever they see as awakening or enlightenment, or because what do I know? I just know a couple of things. I think, though, if we're in right or wrong or good or bad, then we're still in the mind. We're still trying to control, and so it's years ago I read a lot of Osho, and you guys, some of you know Osho, and I read Osho, and I remember this one book I was reading, and actually Osho never wrote anything; they were all his talks, and he, for like a whole chapter, he would say, "This is the way." And I remember this is like in the 80s, and I was reading, or maybe it was in the 90s, but anyway, I was reading Osho, and this is the way, and I'd be like, yes, and he'd be explaining this way, and then he'd get to the end of the chapter, and he'd laugh, and he'd say, "That's not the way." and then he'd go the next chapter and he'd paint another picture of the way. And he was magnificent at this, and I'd be like, yes, you know, and he would just take this whole story of awakening and to a new level. And anyway, so maybe there is no way. Maybe there is no way.
Well, there's no way for you to show me my way, and
Yeah.
for me to show you your way, right? But
Yes.
there's definitely a way. There's my way, which is for me, and I got to find my way. And I will celebrate and encourage and bless and wish and all the good things for you, for every sovereign. And I wrote it this way: I am sovereign, and I prefer that we sovereigns prefer what we sovereigns prefer.
What
You know,
does
that is our
sovereign-
way, right? What's
What
that?
does sovereign mean? I don't understand the word.
I can get into that more. It's a big one, but effectively, effectively you are a lord. We are lords of our domain, and it is innately ours. The I in the brain you're talking about is innately ours. It does not belong to anyone else. It's sovereign to us, and our body is ours. It's sovereign to us. And things like that. Our ideas, what we create, they're ours. So and that's that sense of that we have this
So do I have
power,
to be, do I have
power over our own self, where my sovereignty is for me,
yes?
but it doesn't, if I try to impinge on your sovereignty or try to bless your sovereignty, well, I can't, your sovereignty is for you, you know, and everyone else's sovereignty is their own. So while we know ourselves, you know, you're right. I can't. There's no kind of way for me to say, hey, this is the way for everyone.
Yes.
But I can say there is a way for everyone to find the way, you know, and that would be to know yourself and ask these questions and quite simply do the math. Get doing the way. If there's a way, get on it, you know.
Yeah.
so there is a way. Everyone has the way, and everyone's way is unique to them, as unique as everything else is unique in the world. So yeah.
Nice.
It is nice. You know, David, I when I guess I started realizing and accepting and really started learning about what it was to accept the moment. I was always very lucky in that I could always be in the present moment, but I was always a doer and a maker, a creator in my life. You know, I was brought up to be that way. If it wasn't, if something wasn't there, create it and do it. That's what I was always taught. And I had to learn at one point in my life when things were not creating the way I wanted them to, even though I was doing everything right for myself. This is for me. That's when I started to accept that I had a mentor who actually just said, this is where it is right now. What do you want to do with it? And I had to look at where I was in this creation I was trying to do, which was not working, and just accept it as perfect. And that even though it's not working, it is what it is. And you know what happened when I did that?
No.
The
What?
gift of that moment came to me.
Mm-hmm.
And when that gift of that moment came to me, everything started to unfold after that. So I think when we get into the acceptance of that moment, truly accepting it when it's not in its glory, when we're not receiving everything we want, that's when the gift of that moment will come to us. The lesson, the everything that moment was supposed to mean for us comes to us. And if we just plow on through, we miss it. And I think, I don't know, I just have found when I've done that, it's helped me grow tremendously. And even better, I surrender the result or the how of everything now. If I want anything, I state it, I wish it, I want to co-collaborate it, but I let it go. That takes the journey, all of a sudden unfolds in a way of present moments, and the gifts are there. Stuff starts to happen, and I'm open to it, and everything just appears in the way it's supposed to, and 3 times bigger than I could have ever imagined it. Isn't that something?
Can I ask you, in the way it's supposed to, according to whom?
Ah, good question. My ego, according to the way I think it should so go. And when I let go of that, that's when it turns into something I could not even think of.
Does it turn into something, or is it just then that? Or is that still the ego saying, oh, look, it's turning into that?
Yeah, that's a good question, and it's really good. And you have to, I think it depends on where you're looking from. If I'm
That's right.
looking at how is it serving me,
Right.
or is it, it's
Yes.
how you're perceiving.
So what if there wasn't an ego there doing that? What would
Yeah.
happen?
What would happen is you would follow it. You would just step into
Do
it.
you even have to follow it?
No, you can choose another route,
Right, but
but do
there
you want
wouldn't be anyone to follow it.
Well, I'll say, go ahead.
There
Go
wouldn't
ahead.
be anyone to follow it.
Because
Then
it's,
you're just in the moment without even having to do anything or try anything.
well, don't you find that every moment that you come and you see something come in, such as if you decide to have that urge to write.
Right. Now urge comes from?
Urge comes from many things.
Right.
Urge can come from ego, but
Yeah.
it can also feel like this is something I want to
It can
try.
be the spontaneous force, a spontaneous movement.
It's a spontaneous.
But in
But it can
practice,
also be
it's different
programmed.
when it comes from
You can
ego.
program
It
your
can be
urges.
programmed, or it
Yeah.
can be something that fills something within you that you need.
Right.
It can be a lesson. And especially if it's something you're totally unacquainted with, but it's something that is,
Yeah, I
sorry.
think you get into dopamine and all those other
Not
drugs
so
and
much
THC
dopamine,
receptors
not
and
dopamine.
success that goes in your brain, like, ooh, I did it, and like
Depends what
failure
side
and your brain
you're
restructures.
into.
And
Yeah.
there's some biochemistry involved. That is true.
Oh yeah. But sometimes you just like, okay, I love to just say, what would be fun? What would be something I would like to just explore? And when it comes in any form, I try it. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, but most often it leads on to something even more, or maybe it doesn't. But everything always leads from, oh, Adrian, you're muted.
You're muted, Adrian.
I'm a little bit curious because I don't know you. I don't know you well. Will that happen without that mental evaluation process that you're spontaneously doing that? Or is that every time you're kind of going like, oh, do I want to explore this and so on? Or does that also happen without you even giving mental commentary, and it's just moving that way?
Both.
That's a great question.
Both.
That's a great question. I was going to say, in my experience, both as well. It may start off in the mind. It may start off as an idea, right? Or feeling idea. Maybe it's a brain idea. Maybe it's a heart idea, right? Okay. But then it fleshes out. I mean, I've had questions answered that I now, 40 years later, that I asked when I was 5. And I was like, oh, okay, maybe I should pay attention to what I'm throwing out there in the universe. And this, I don't know if that kind of relates to what you're talking about, but yeah, it's both. So then in that process, that 40-year process, I was getting this answer to this question. And it was like a bunch of, why is this happening now? Blah, blah, blah. And oh yeah, way back, I said, hey, why does this happen? And then the universe is showing, oh yeah, it'll take you a bit of time to understand this, but this is your response of that kind of dual process where I put myself in it, but then I'm experiencing in it, and it's fresh to me as if I never experienced it. But I put, kind of hard to say that loop, but I think you get what I'm saying.
Okay.
You know what? In my experience recently, I feel like a newcomer. I feel like a student. I feel like a kid in a way. Like it, in a way, I recognize that I don't know anything, and it's life has become more of an adventure than, it feels like an adventure, and that's my experience these days. Is and my ego says, yeah, but you've been doing this for years. This is a long. You've been sober for 40 years. You've been kind of searching for 50, but it's all like so new in a way, and I just I had this idea that if I learned enough, I would get better at life, and all the learning didn't work for me. So I can't say it didn't work for me, but it wasn't about the learning. It's about the letting go of the learning, and letting go of the idea that I would somehow find the secret. Speaking of that, I just want to tell a quick story. I have a friend who's taking a course, and he's going to take this course in there, and the course is based on the spiritual secrets. And I think it's, and I told him, I said, wow, spiritual secrets. What could they be? And he's my friend, so I can toy with him a little bit. And I did, I said, oh my gosh, how much? So he's paying for this course to go, and learn these, spiritual secrets. And I think since the dawn of time, we've, people have tried to somehow teach us something that's going to allow us to still hang on to our ego, and yet have the experience of infiniteness or oneness, or yeah. So I think, though, like Lowell says, I that I don't know. I just know what I know, and I don't know what that's going to be until we're there, or here in this moment. I don't have a particular path. I do recommend a few things like meditation. I think that I love that enlightenment intensive. It's kind of blows the top off of things, and allows us to see. I think being with a guru or a teacher can be very helpful. I spent years reading Hawkins. I loved Hawkins, and Hawkins, was is amazing, high vibration, a teacher, if you will. And I think those things are all important if we're if we really truly are drawn, if you will, to this awakening, or, and I don't even like to call it an awakening, to this oneness. If we're drawn to freedom, then I think those things are good. And so whatever we find that kind of works for us, takes us down a certain road, I don't think that I can tell anybody that they're on the wrong road. If they
I think that's our blessing. I think that's our celebration, is that we all have our own path. I think
Yeah.
so. That's a great thing. I think that, I just love that we all are experiencing our own individual way, and
Yes.
I'd like to hear about different people's way. What was your way? Well, oh, that's neat. That's kind of like my way. Oh, that's not like my way at all, but that's cool for you. Like, that's real. I celebrate. I love that. It's just, I think that's our almost like our birthright, is to explore our own way, and find out what are the secrets for us, what are the secrets that we want to find out, So I
And
just love that. Thank you.
yes, well, thank you. And Adrian and I have talked lots about his path and how he kind of found his way. And I think we all, have a different path. Exactly. I totally agree. Mike, do you have anything you want to share?
No, I just, hello, can you hear me?
I can, yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah. Sorry I was late. I was trying to get into Facebook earlier and I couldn't. So, yeah, I just really enjoy listening to, people are speaking and when I sit and listen to people or leaders or whatever, it comes to mind. Yeah, it does calm my mind, and like always, like I try to go to the heart. There's a few incidents today. I had to, go to the heart, and I had a problem with my son there, and I was a little bit sad, but I got over it. I just prayed, and these meditations helped me, and it just calms, and that's why I learned, like, through meditations, and I used to go to native sweats and stuff like that, and I've learned a lot, that's helped me through the years. I'm also in the program, and yeah. I don't got much to say. I just enjoy listening right now.
Mike, thank you for being here, bud.
You're
Yeah.
welcome.
Mike and I go back probably 35 years, maybe longer. Long time, eh?
Long time, yeah.
I'm glad you're here.
So am I. Yeah.
Adrian, any thoughts?
Thoughts? Well, yeah, I had a thought earlier that I was going to ask you. When you say freedom, what do you mean?
It's interesting because it's easier for me to describe the not so freedom part of the one side of it than it is to describe the other side of it. But so what I'm
Or maybe like say freedom from what, or freedom of what?
yes. When I'm caught in my idea of how things should be, then I don't consider myself free. In a way, I consider
You're
myself
not free of what?
of an idea, of a belief, of a concept, of a conditioned program,
Maybe like a desire too, of wanting it to be a certain way.
that can come with it.
Okay.
It doesn't have to come with a desire, but it can come with the desire for wanting it to be a certain way. Even if it's interesting because I'm working. I haven't had a job in 30 some years, and I'm working, and I watch my mind making up stories about the people at work and their connections and their relationships and the culture, and it's just I'm like, look, it's crazy, and of course, if it's making up the stories and I don't have any attachment and I just kind of let them go, it's then it's just
So
entertainment.
there's a next level.
Yes, you're on
Because- there's a next level. So you made up these stories, like you said, which doesn't matter actually.
no.
But what mattered?
Well,
What was next?
the attachment, of course. If I
Which
believe
looked like
them,
what? It pissed you off, or it got you jealous, or
generally it'll create fear,
okay,
or it'll create the story. If I get hooked on it and play it out, it's still me getting in trouble.
and then you're suffering that.
And then it's like if depending on how far I let it go, or or how deeply I go into the little pocket of jail,
Right.
the little non-freedom, and I had a thing. I'll tell you. I'll just share it with you. I'm working with a guy, and he's helping to teach me things, and they're giving out meds, and he can, he's a beautiful man. He really is, but he can micromanage, and he was micromanaging me, and I watched myself. I got totally caught in it. I was like, and not only was he micromanaging me, but he was micromanaging me in front of the clients, and I could see what was happening in here, and so I should be paying him double. I don't pay him at all, but he, because I got such a huge gift, to watch this bubble up, and and how dare he talk to me like this, and it was all kinds of things. It was embarrassment, and there was shame, and there was all kinds of. It was all just there, and
Right.
and I didn't stay there.
Right. So can I ask you, just to stick with you? So when that happened, what's the problem with that for you? When that happened?
Well, I reacted.
Yeah, but what's the problem with that?
Well, ultimately there's no problem with that.
Well, but it's worth you bringing it up now, so that there was something that you didn't like about it.
Well, sure there was, and there was a judgment on me.
What's that?
I judged myself.
So then you judged yourself, which you don't like to do.
No.
Because
Okay. So
why
no.
don't you like to do it?
Uh,
I'm
go-
just trying to understand, because so
Yes, yes,
far
yes. Yeah.
someone could judge themselves and have no problem with it.
Yep.
And then they would say, well, but there's no problem.
Yeah.
But for you, it's a problem. So why is there a problem with that?
So let's back up a little bit, and we'll call it ego. We'll call it mind. We'll say,
Okay.
what happened in the moment. I mean, ultimately now there's no judgment, or there's no reaction to the judgment. But in the moment, the whole bunch of things come up, including my reaction to
Right.
being told what to do, including my judgment on myself for.
But what was the
reacting.
problem with the judgment of yourself? What was the problem with that? Because up to that, nothing happened. He was micromanaging.
Yeah,
you
and apparently
reacted,
now it's
which is
okay. So I guess
fine.
I hear what you're saying, Adrian. Like something's up. I hear what you're saying.
Like
Adrian.
everything so far seems fine, but then something just doesn't seem to be fine, because you had to judge yourself as a result. I
Yes.
don't know if he judged himself, but you did. And I guess what I'm getting at, were you suffering that experience?
In the moment, I was in.
You were suffering that experience.
Yes. Yeah. And I
And so
wasn't.
then with the
I was
freedom,
making-
you
I was
suffered
making-
such
I
experience.
was making a lot of it wrong. I mean, that's where we get
Right.
caught in right and wrong. That's where we get caught in that's the prison that we can live in.
Right. And so the freedom would be to break out of that prison
Yes.
and to be free of the self-beating up,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
the, like you said, the meaning making it, the story afterwards, like,
Oh,
oh
yeah.
my God, I can't believe he did that, and I can't believe I said this afterwards. And then
Yeah.
like this, and I
Yeah.
feel so ashamed
It's
now.
juicy. Like having a job and working, it's very juicy. There's lots of, it was a juicy experience.
Right.
And nobody
Right.
got, I didn't punch him out or anything. It just, but it was juicy, and it was like, oh my gosh, and so there, in the end, there was gratitude. It was like, oh, wow, okay, thank you. You know, because I got to see my
Right. You saw
experience.
how this plays.
Yes, yeah, and you know, it was, yeah, it was gratitude. And
Mhm.
you know that well, I guess one of the points is that in isolation, it's hard for me to see myself.
Right. Yeah.
Yes, and being in the play, you know, and and not the boss,
Mhm.
you know, because I've
Right.
been the boss for years, right?
Right.
In the play and not the boss, and to watch it all unfold and to be you know, I'm not always grateful. You know, it's like, oh gosh, but it's beautiful. And you know, I have to watch too that it's not just a program that says, oh, this is good for me. You know, a cliche. Um, and
Yes.
and to
That can be just another way
yes, yeah, you
of
know,
shape shifting. But
yes,
then you'll keep going like this.
it's another judgment of the experience.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And so just to be there, oh, okay, you know, and it's really, you know, I'm working with these fellas, and you know, some of them are in quarantine in the rooms, and I got to take them up stuff, and I'm really in service. It's an amazing opportunity to be there in service, and to be conscious of that, you know, and to be watching it all unfold. And yeah, I'm so in the moment I feel grateful.
And when you experienced all that happening,
Yes,
you know, in accepting it,
yes.
did you learn why it was happening? Did you get a greater understanding of why that all bubbled up inside you? Or
Well,
did you just let it be?
no, I let it be. I have spent, you know, I've done kind of watch where I do therapy on me, you know, and because I can get caught up in therapy.
And from what I know, David, you're not on a therapy path.
No,
No.
I know I'm not.
No, you use this to come to see the true you, the natural you,
Yes,
not to
therapy.
not get into the mind's way of saying, well, and maybe if I was this, then he wouldn't project that onto me, and then we wouldn't be micromanaging me and all this stuff. And when I asked you more deeply, I wasn't at all trying to go into the nuances of the psychological mind as much as what, you know, because my first question was, what's freedom? Freedom of what? And then if one says, well, it's freedom to be irritated by a micromanaging boss, that could be one thing, no? But to another person, a micromanaging boss is not a jail.
Mhm.
So then for someone, it may be the freedom to not have certain feelings when adversity comes, but then the nature of those feelings tend to be bringing about a certain amount of suffering, no pain.
So,
And the freedom from this suffering, of this agony of interactions and so on, no? Or even yourself, like your own patterns or your own, you know, easily triggered stuff that tends to come up under certain circumstances, which then we can suffer so deeply as well.
yeah, and the trick just seems to not, you know, to watch it, not be attached.
Yes,
and,
just to
and
watch it.
just watch it and not be attached. And by the way, you guys, it can happen when I'm all by myself on the motorcycle. Stuff just bubbles up, and stories, and you know, what did she mean by that? You know, and so
Mhm.
it's and I think that the benefit of us sharing all openly and honestly here is, you know, so that we can all see that in ourselves. You know, if there is a benefit, if there's to you know, and recognize that we're not our mind and we're not our emotions. You know, ultimately we're not our body. You know, we're not our job. You know, we're not our, we label ourselves as a parent or a, you know, a dog owner. And, you know, or a seeker. And you know, to surrender all of that. But it's an interesting process to watch, for me anyway, to watch the mind trying to make meaning, you know, especially now, you know, I'm in the front line and I'm doing this work with these people, and, you know, just to let it go, just to say, okay, this is where I am. This is what I do. Okay, let's be here and do that, you know, and the mind wants to know where it's going. Where's this going? Just going to, you know, it's a crazy, because that's the trap. That's the prison of the mind, you know, wants to, you know, have a goal or a destination or a, you know, am I going to be on the front desk forever? That's and nothing, not to make the mind bad or wrong, just recognize that that's what it does. Yeah. So I love doing
That
that.
mind needs to be at the front desk forever.
Yeah.
And then you can go wherever.
Yes. Yeah.
Maybe because that
David?
mind, maybe that's its only spot, you know, that's as good as it's gonna get. But then the natural you'll see that, you know, you left it there, you know, the mind, and then the you will be called into what maybe your heart is looking for more, no? Because I mean, why would I say, well, am I at the front desk forever? Is because of a certain lack maybe of fulfillment or lack of feeling that I'm following my calling or something like this. When I put myself in this position that you're in, you know, because I run my own business myself right now, like you do. So I'm also kind of like what's called my own boss or whatever. And then if I put myself, it's like, well, I'm going to work for a micromanaging boss now at the front desk, which you know, that of course brings up a lot of existential questions, you know. It's like, how did I end up here, you know, after being independent, so to say, and so on.
Is that what you call it, existential?
Well, sometimes I use that as some word, as this inner quest, you know, existential questions like, who am I? What am I? What's this all about? You know, how can I be free of this suffering and so on? You know, so I sum it up as existential, but you could call it something else. And, you know, but that would kind of bring up this inner searching of like, what am I doing here? How long will I be here? Why am I even here? And so on.
Well, I get that none of that's really my business.
Exactly. If then that can be surrendered.
Yeah, it's just not my business.
It's not your business, and literally then the mind is not followed into these trains of thoughts.
Yeah.
So then you can be forever at that front desk in a way, because you don't even realize you're at the front desk at some level.
Yes, because it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
No.
But it finally not mattering, then whatever will be as it will anyways. But in some way, life has tended to show us that that's also then when even better alignment somehow comes, or which the mind then says, well, that's a better alignment in some way. No.
Beautiful.
I think that's the power of
That's pretty
surrender
awesome.
in a way.
What are you saying, Lowell?
One of the spiritual truths I found is, if you want to be spiritual or grow spiritually, do other people's dishes that are not your own, and until you enjoy it. You know, so, and that's where you're like this kind of like service to others as you're doing, and kind of like humility in it. And then in the moment, it's like, man, this is my life experience is this moment. And so it really just kind of gets you, you know, and I have found for me, that's like, now I kind of like, ask people if I can do the dishes when I can. When I can, because I was going to jump in, kind of lead into this, David. Your mind seems to work a little bit like mine, I think, which is it's a bit of a defensive against harm. Sort of our mind is a bit of a, I had to look back and I'm like, why am I not looking at this opportunistically like this other fellow? And it's like, oh, that's an offensive kind of thinking, like score the goal kind of mindset. And I'm like, I'm going to prevent the goal from being scored. That's using a soccer analogy. I was a defensive soccer player. Well, that's the mindset I had because and I look back in my trauma healing, and I've been traumatized, is that the angles of attack or defense, or just to get out of the hurt zone, was defensive. Try not to hurt myself, try not to hurt other people, and things like that. So, and even with physical abuse, things like that. So this mindset, then I recognize that it's like, oh, okay, it kicks in. And it'll, if I was driving down in a motorbike and like you said, it would hit me, I might just have to pull over and it'd just be like, okay. And before I'd get into it, like, oh my goodness. And then I realized, okay, you're telling me that you're hurt, Lowell, you want to process something. I'm going to pull over the motorbike and we're just going to maybe have to cry and give you a hug, because I'm and listen to myself and go, okay, mind, you're bringing up a point. Maybe it's important, maybe it's not. If it is, and my heart wants to bring it out, let's deal with it. Okay, let's process it and let's look at what the message is. Where I've gotten to a new technique where it is, and I wanted to ask you about this, where going from downside to upside. Okay, I'm listening to you downside. I didn't want this. I didn't want that. That hurt. Okay, yeah, but anger. I get it. You're angry because that hurt. Yeah, it hurt. That hurt. This is what hurt. This hurt the most. Okay, what did you really want? Okay, so that's the upside question. What did you really want? Mind? Start thinking like that. So I train my mind. Okay. And if I'm, I don't have the time to do that while I'm, driving on the motorbike. One of the techniques I've realized is when I start going into that, as I would realize, okay, mind, get it. I get it. The injustice is clear. We'll deal with that later, and then get to the event or something like that. And if I can't, sometimes I just don't get to the event and have to process. And the more recent thing I've discovered is from Neville Goddard and Napoleon Hill and Joe Rodriguez talking about Think and Grow Rich is in forward thinking, to imagine the forward event that I want to happen the way I want it and imagine it in my heart and feel it from my heart. What would I really want? And start forward thinking the upside and pre-program my subconscious with this and my reality now. And program it consciously. Okay, this is what I really want. And then the technique is then when the mind goes, hey, this is what I didn't want, to then do it again and say, well, let's do that. Let's go back in time and reprogram reality and feel how I wanted that to be and imagine how I wanted it to be. And then just forgive and accept and see what happens in the next moment. And interestingly, I found that it's as if that my reimagination of the upside loving version that I preferred it to be happened. It was like, I wish I would have said this, because why would you have wished you have said that? Why would you have wished you have done that? Because because you wanted this outcome and you feel that you lost that outcome. Okay, go back and rewind in your heart, put it in there, that's the outcome you wanted. Solidify it in your brain, Lowell, in your heart. Okay, that's what I wanted. Okay, upside, that's what we want. And then that's what we wanted. And it's as if it's going to the future, but it's looking at the past. I'm curious if that has any kind of, if you've used any techniques like that or do stuff like that with kind of tricking your own mind, because it kind of wants to go into this loop. Another trick I've used is just my mind isn't logical all the time. So I'll just be like, yeah, well, the sky is red. And it's like, it doesn't have to be logical, because the mind isn't really sometimes logical. It's just trying to say that hurt, I get it. And then it doesn't matter. The sky is red, that hurt. The sky is red, that hurt. You're right, injustice. We'll talk later. So I'm curious if that kind of relates to if you've had any kind of similar successes with this kind of hindsight 2020 now, and then future, I call it future retroactively reprogramming.
So no.
Yeah, no worries.
No,
no
but
worries.
let me just
But yeah,
say
it wasn't a very super quick and clear short answer
um,
to have a yes or no answer. Thank you.
What's easier kind of in a way to work with in an exchange like this is an actual incident or a story, you know, so that we can play something that's more personal or personal to you. What was coming up when you were sharing is that this thought that I don't really have many techniques, and yet then I thought, well, no, maybe I do, you know, and most of them are not about getting things; they're more around in relating or relationships, if you will, and that with, let's say that I'm in a situation with somebody who has is maybe is dishonest or that I would have. So the technique, if you would, that would come, I don't know if you call it technique, but would be to have compassion, you know, or to see that when we're sometimes in our ego, when say that if I was upset with somebody because they you know continually told me a story and didn't show up, or they, you know, and I was like, oh damn, you know, that's 6 times that guy said he was going to show up and he didn't, you know, and I start to see more deeply into his fear or into his you know, so just so that I can have compassion and let go of it, you know, because I try, my thing, and I don't know if I'm doing this well, is to not try to control the circumstances even in my life, to surrender. I'm on a men's group, you know, and my men, when I closed my business last year, they wanted me to make a plan and a goal. And I said, well, actually, no, I'm not going to do that. I've done that for years. I'm going to do this. And this is just surrendering. And if I end up on the front desk at a treatment center, that's where I'm going. You know, wherever it is that the universe or God wants me to go, I'm going to go and serve in love. So I let go of, and I don't know if I've done this 100%, but as much as I can in this moment describe it, of hanging on to wanting anything to be different, and so when I get caught in wanting it to be different, my technique is to just let it go. Say, oh, look at that. I wanted that to be different. I wanted that to be, yeah. And to, yeah, I've just let go of needing or wanting it to be different than it is. And yet if something is happening on a personal level with Adrian, and you know, it's like an old walk a mile in his shoes kind of an analogy. You know, how do I have compassion with Adrian if you know, or see who he is, if I don't take a moment to experience him, or to just, you know, and not be in what's not happening for me, and be more in what's really happening. So, but I don't really have a technique around, you know, I don't think anyway. I'll look, I'll keep looking though.
I think, David, my experience of you is that maybe you could have related more to what Lowell is saying maybe some years ago. But I think you have, like what I have witnessed with you over the last year, for sure, last couple of years is, you know, what you just described about this letting go, that you've very much like made that your mantra in maybe a way more than I've seen many other beings doing it. Like, because a lot of people, like, it's easy to say relatively, you know, to say, oh, you know, just let things go and so on, and I'll just go with it wherever it takes me or whatever. But, you know, but I think for you, like what I have seen is that you have really, really followed this. Because I remember it when you first started to say it, and I actually didn't believe you much, to be honest. I didn't think you could do it. I didn't think you would do it. I thought it was just another way of like, oh, I've got this really good technique and I like my techniques, and you know, I'll apply it for a little while, and then if it doesn't work, I'll do something else, you know. But in my life, I've had a few beings that I've encountered who really, really, really walk this path that way of surrender. And you're one of them, and it draws me to connection with you because it's one thing to talk a talk and report what the mind is constructing and what it's thought out, and it's going to practice this and that for a couple of months, and then it switches over to this technique and so on. But what I see with you is that you're really throwing all that aside because, you know, because you kind of realize that you can't really trust that mind of yours, you know. And I think that that doubt of one's own mind and its capacity to lead us, so to say, I think that's a very useful doubt, especially when one can really observe and say, well, but it hasn't, you know, it will take credit for when it does do good, so to say, based on my own judgment, my ego's judgment, but then it condemns me when it does wrong, also based on my ego's assessment. And so after some time of observing that, one goes like, well, this thing isn't trustable. Because it double plays me all the time. It double plays others. It maybe even triple plays it. And so then, you know, that's kind of the surrendering of using that as the primary lead, and to surrender into something higher, you know, into some higher guidance, so to say, which then the words become more difficult to explain, because now as one explains it, then if another one hears it, they may just attach their labels to it, you know, maybe similarly to what happened to the commentator on the post about like going off about God now. It's like, but that wasn't the fundamental discussion we were having. We were discussing actually acceptance, you know. Take away God, forget that for then, if that doesn't work for you. What about just acceptance, you know, even the acceptance of that someone's talking about God and I don't resonate with it, you know, like this, it could have been applied right there as well, right? So that type of surrender is really, really powerful. And you're the living example of it. But the benefit that the mind lacks, it doesn't get to claim anything now.
I know.
It doesn't get to say, well, I did it. Look at me.
Can I share something?
Yes.
You probably, I don't know if you remember this, but the conversation we had that night, I remember really well, and you were very instrumental in me bringing words to what was happening because you challenged me.
I don't know which one that was.
Well, I was in my store and I was starting to sell meditation kits and teach meditation, and you called me, you know, we talked on the phone, and you said, you know,
well, yes.
What makes you think you can do that? You know, you challenged me, and I was like, because I didn't really know what I was doing, and I didn't know where this was going, and I didn't, you know, and I said, geez, I don't know. And we had this, it just came out of me to you, you know, that I have no fucking idea what I'm doing. and you were like, oh, okay, great. I like that.
Yes. I remember it. It was like,
oh. Afterwards, I remember thinking, because I think I was actually living in the store at the time. I was thinking, no, I guess this is what I'm doing, not knowing what I'm doing, and
Yes.
it
And
was
it's interesting how it naturally just morphed.
yes,
It just kept morphing, and you kept going with whatever came up.
yeah,
And whatever form it started to take now, you just followed that, or you didn't even follow it. It just took you.
yes,
And,
and I don't imagine for a moment that mine doesn't give me a hard time over it. Mine.
But your mind would give you a hard time over that because
Yes.
you have chosen a path. I'm going to accept everything and not be the quarterback. And the mind's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. That's a hard one for everyone's mind.
Mine.
You know,
Gives
I
me-
applaud,
it's a
I agree with
universal
Adrian.
thing
I
of
applaud you
mind to
on.
be a, that's right, Lowell.
Yeah,
It's not even a
you're
personal mind at this stage.
well done.
The mind does not like this. That's why no one does it. It's no one, as in why it's rare. Because of the very nature of mind, of always saying like, oh, what are you doing? Giving you a hard time.
It comes up around this. If you guys mind, I'll share with you. It comes up. Why are you doing this? It says it, and I say, well, it doesn't matter. We're doing it. There is no why. Let's not go to why. And I do negotiate a bit with it, and I find myself sometimes caught in it, and because mine wants to know, what are we doing? We're going to do meditations on Monday nights forever. And I'm like, whatever. We just tonight. Let's do it tonight. And so yes, it's a.
But I think sometimes mind, particularly when it uses certain absurdities, it's actually kind of nice. It's most tricky when the mind seems to make sense, right? That's when we tend to believe it. We're most likely to become seduced by it.
Yes.
But when it becomes really absurd, then it's kind of nice. Once one becomes a little bit aware, because then it's like, oh yeah, I know who's talking now. I see you now. Now you can't hide. You can't hide behind nice talk or, making it sound, giving you good reason or something like that.
Yeah.
When it starts like, are you going to do this forever? You know who's talking, because that mind has never known about anything about forever anyways, because it's had many plans forever and they all have failed.
Yes.
So it's easy to catch it now.
More so.
Especially when it becomes like this. And as we start to catch it, we just, like you like Mooji, and Mooji says, stop giving it oxygen. Just, it's like you unplug the fan and the fan keeps turning. Just let it turn. Don't plug it back in by looking at it going, why are you still turning?
Yeah.
Just keep removing the plug and leave the power off to it, and then it will disappear on itself.
Yeah. And yes, and that's so there isn't anything on one side of it. There's like so with all of the experience, when the mind questions it, where's this going? What are you doing? How are you going to make money? All of whatever the mind comes up, and I just say, look, it's okay. It's okay. I talk to it like it's a kid sometimes. It's okay. So
of course you would worry about this. I understand. And even the compassion bit, in that sense, we can have that compassion saying like, of course you'd worry about this.
Yeah.
Of course you'd have to throw this up. Of course you'd have to, ask so many whys, that's just your nature, why not leave the mind to its nature?
Yes.
Is this a newer path preference adventure that your mind is? I mean, for me, I'm relating, going, this kind of happens when it's new to me, and my mind's like, I'm not used to this. And then when I'm used to it, it's like, then it takes over and like, let's do this, and this is fun. Let's do it this way. So before I didn't even want to.
Well, in a way, it in retrospect, if we look back, it's all been towards this, and yet there was, I really almost feel like we had to exhaust all the options to get to this, and it wasn't, and now really looking at, and I just call it the simplicity of, God, the employer, just in that just kind of, it's just really simple. It's just like, okay, I have a new boss, and that's it. It's not complicated. There's not a lot of, and my prayer is to, how can I be of service? Show me what you'd have me to be, guide me and strengthen me. They're just really simple prayers, and I do the best I can to get up each morning and follow direction. And I'm very much on a need to know basis, and that's the way it feels. And there's things that come up around money and relationships sometimes, and just really clear, it's none of my business. It's just not my business. It's this is it. My business is to do this, whatever it is we're doing, and to be there, and I think that I, spend a lot of time in training in a way. And I just didn't know that I was in training. I didn't know that it was, I thought I was getting somewhere. And so, I think I'm still in training. This is, but it's it's interesting because when we talk about it, there's a, it's really easy the mind wants to factor in objectives or results, and to just leave those out. No objectives, no results, and the results are not my business. And so maybe and we might talk in sometime in the future, and it won't sound this way at all. I don't know what it'll look like. I have no idea. And so,
well, I can share. I learned this when because I know what you're doing, because I've done it a lot. I mean, I live that way now, because I was going through an extremely hard divorce where I was fighting for support they didn't want to give. And I remember it was a long, hard fight, 5.5 years. And, we went through everything. And finally it had gone to the Supreme Court of Indiana. Okay. And it was a long process. And I remember I was getting this weird, my mind was just going crazy because it had been so much pressure and there was a lot of other stuff. It was a very bad divorce. And so I remember I went to see my mentor, Lowell. I don't know, you know all Neville Goddard and all that. Well, my mentor was Bob Proctor. And
we love Bob Proctor.
I love Bob.
Yeah, sure, we love Bob.
He's a very good friend of mine. And so anyway, when I went for the first time to see him, I saw him in an email and he said, "You need to come see me." I didn't even know who he was. I never saw The Secret, nothing like that. And I said, "Yes, I do." And I drove up to Toronto and I went to his event. That was it. And when I saw him, I thought, okay, he has a message for me. There's something I can learn. And so I really went, I just said, how do I get to talk to him? How do I get to talk to him? He has something for me. And when I sat down with him, I told him everything. And he said, "Let it go." I said, "What do you mean, let it go? What do you mean?" And he said, "Let it go. Just let it all go." I said, "But Bob, it's there." He said, "Let it go. You don't need this. Let it go." And I'll tell you, right then, I repeated it like 3 times with him, "Let it go." And then I felt everything lift off of me. I mean, I felt 50 pounds. I'm not just lift right off. And I started to actually giggle. I didn't know what to do. It was weird. And I remember I went and I tried to cancel everything that day. And then when I got back from my trip, they said, "Well, this is too far along. You can't cancel it." And I thought, okay, then I'm going to cancel it. You can go on with the procedure, but I'm going to cancel it. I'm not going to let go of this freedom, this incredible freedom. And I just I offered it up. I said, okay, God, it's out there. Whatever happens, may it be the best for everyone. That's it. I'm letting it go. It's in your hands. And I went on. I had no care. I didn't think about it. And, really quickly, what happened was when that Supreme Court came back, I lost. And I didn't care. I didn't care. I had handed it up. I thought, okay, that's the best for all. That's it. And I went on with my life. And then I was driving down for a kids thing, and I got a call from someone from my ex's side, and he said, Elena, we know what you're fighting for, and I'll let you know, we're going to take care of everything. The universe had done exactly what I surrendered, the benefit for all. There was no hostility. Everybody was now in forgiveness, and the kids were still going to be supported. And I didn't have to I just let it go. And that's how I decided then, that's how I was going to live my life. Because I love the freedom. I love, and I trust. And it really does come from trusting in that something bigger. And when you know and feel it and trust it, then it's easy. It's a lot easier. It always turns out bigger than you can ever imagine. So I thought I'd offer that story if it helps anyone. Yeah. Anyway.
So I think we're talking about moment to moment surrender, and maybe we'll kind of move off this into a meditation. And I don't. Yeah, it's a little after 9. We've been at this for a couple of hours, you guys. And
After 11.
11 where you are, yes.
Yeah.
And thank you. Let's finish with a meditation. And you know what? It's sometimes hard to explain. Maybe always that sitting quietly can bring us into communion, into connection with call it universal intelligence, call it infiniteness, to endless energy, to but peace can come. And I think that the practice of this allows us to even know ourselves better, to watch our mind, to let it go, to watch our emotions, to become familiar with the equipment, and as we become familiar with the equipment, we can then, actually let go of like you did, our desires, our fight, the complaint, the judgments, the fear, anger, the resentment. We can let it all go, and trust in each moment that everything is unfolding really as it should, as it needs to, as it is. And when we're there in that space of nothingness, we'll feel this connection, this wonderful bliss, that comes. So I encourage you to meditate. And one more thing that comes, I have a YouTube channel. I'd love it if you guys would go and love my YouTube channel. We've been working on this, growing this YouTube channel, and that would be fun if you did that. Subscribe to that. And it's interesting with this whole thing, of being on Facebook and having followers and having a big audience and doing all of that, and yet to hold it really lightly, to not, to watch my mind wanting. So just let the wanting go, and just to, so however it unfolds. Oh, and the other thing I wanted to mention, I love doing those interviews. If anybody has anybody that they think that, if you've ever watched any of my interviews, I really enjoy doing them. So if you can think of somebody that it would be good for the interview, like Bob Proctor. I love Bob. He goes back a long way.
Yes, it does.
He does. And then that would be fun. So That's it. We're gonna meditate for a little while, and thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. When we get to the end of the meditation, I'm going to ring the bell. I love my bell, and it's fun. Muji's been ringing a bell lately. Have you ever seen him do it, Adrian? Yeah, he's got a bell. I've had this one been hanging around the house waiting for me. I just didn't know it. Okay, you guys, let's just drop in. Just drop in and breathe. The breath is so beautiful. Breath is life. Just breathe into your chest and into your belly. With our breath, we're in the moment in our breath. Because breath is now. Breath is now. So in each moment, we're just going to surrender and live in acceptance. No matter what's happening, we have an ache in our body, just accept it. If the bank account is low, just accept it. If your wife and your husband is upset with you, just accept it. Feeling fear, accept it. Your mind likes to make up stories about what's happening. Just accept that. Let it go. Just accept all of those things. Hmm. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Elena. Your meditation's on Wednesday at 11.
At 11 your time. Yeah.
I'll post it for you.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Love you guys. Thanks so much.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.